Hello, welcome to my video, and here I'm going to cover the game between Anish, Giri and Ivan Saric from round 3 of European Team Championship. The opening was English. Saric chose this variation with bishop b4, knight d5, and now bishop c5. Also, it's possible to go bishop e7, which was played recently between Nepomniachtchi and Aryan Tari, where Tari won the game. He chose instead bishop c5, e3, and now knight f6. And here Giri chose to play b4. Black did play bishop e7 in the end. And in the online database I found 2 games of Saric as black in this position, against Ivanišević and against Tomaszewski, and he won both games, but bishop b2 was played in both of those games. So probably Giri checked that out and wanted to improve on that. And instead he took on e7. After queen e7 he went bishop b2, attacking the e5 pawn, so he doesn't care at the moment about b4 pawn. Black castled, and now knight e2. He chose this instead of knight f3 because he wants to go to g3 and to target f5. And here Black plays rook e8, and in my database this is not played. This was not played before. And rook e8 with a simple threat of capturing on b4, because now the e5 pawn is under attack. So now Giri plays a3. Now he must play a3 to defend. Black tries to break with a5, but now Giri blocks, and now he plays c5, which is a bit dubious. I think that just d6 here, with the idea of going to d7 with the knight to c5 and maybe eventually to e6, was a more solid approach. But here he chose to play c5. He goes knight g3 now. He plays d6 here. If he tried d5, then just take, and rook c1. Next is going to be bishop c4. So, for example, if Black tries to play b6, then even queen f3 is a possibility. And after knight c7, because after bishop b7, for example, then you have knight f5, and this doesn't look really pleasant. After a couple of more moves, knight e3, he goes back, and bishop c4 will be quite unpleasant, and eventually the knight from e7 would have to go back to g6, after which knight f5 would be a possibility. He can just play bishop c4, push h4, h5, go on the king side, and if necessary to play king f1, g3 and king g2. So instead, if he plays knight c7 here, then bishop c4 would be very good. And after rook a7, to first fix the queen side by this, and if bishop b7, then queen g4 with knight f5 would be very unpleasant. Also, like in the game, white would castle on the king side, push f4, and the bishop on b2 would be most likely opened up, because the e5 would not be so easy to defend. Instead, he tried to keep the position more closed with d6, and now bishop d3. The point of this is to stop e4 from being played, because now if you play e4, now he can simply capture, and the e4 pawn is hanging on the next move. He plays knight bd7 here, trying to get his knight to f8, to g6, to somehow hold the king side together. Giri castles, knight f8, and now f4, trying to open up the f file. Again, e4 doesn't work because of bishop f6, and bishop e4 next, taking the pawn, and with an extra pawn it's not a problem, even if the position is slightly more closed. Now he plays b6, trying to go bishop b7 and to prepare e4, but now queen c2 was played. Now rook a7, h3, because he wants to prepare rook f2 doubling on the f file, knight g6, and now he plays fe5. It was interesting here to play f5, and after this to push e4, block the center, and to try to create something on the king side by moving the knight to e2, pushing g4, g5, and maybe creating some attack on the king side. Instead, Giri chose fe5, and after taking, now he went for rook f2, which was an inaccurate move. It was better to play bishop f5, was very good here, because what happened in the game was that after rook f2, now Black had a chance to strike in the center with e4, and now it's not possible to capture because the queen on c2 is clumsy, and now you can take on d3. And after bishop e7, dc2, after bishop g5 you can play f6, and after bishop f4 to go to d7 and put some great pressure on queenside pawns. Rook d3 is coming next, putting pressure on the a3 pawn, and also you can double on the d file. Let's say if you play something like rook c1, you can play rook d3 and you can target the a3 pawn. If he pushes a4 here, you can go even rook a3, attack the a4 pawn, and black is more than fine. Also, I want to mention after e4, if he goes to e2, if he just steps away, now queen d6 is very nice. And after knight f5, let's say, because if you don't do it, then rook d8 is coming next, or rook d7, and the d2 pawn is also under attack. If he plays knight f5, then bishop f5 takes and queen g3, wanting to go to h4 with the knight. And in case of something like bishop f6 to capture, and after this knight h4, you cannot go to f1 with the bishop because of knight f3, and black is winning some material because of the checkmate on h2 if he doesn't give up the exchange like this. Here, if he plays rook f2, now f5 is very strong, and now rook g7 is coming next, doubling or even tripling on the g file, which will be a disaster for white. Instead, in the game, he played queen d8, and now Anish doubles. And now e4 is not possible anymore because white is attacking 3 times and black is defending only twice. So he tries with knight h4 here. He takes on f6, sacrifices the exchange, but he weakens the kingside pawns so much. Black took, nothing else was left, and now he takes on h7, king f8, and bishop c3. Nice prophylactic move to defend on d2 before he starts deploying his queen on the king side by playing queen e4 and so on. And now bishop b7 was played, trying to stop queen e4. Now bishop b4. White is happy to exchange those light square bishops because in the end f5 square will be a nice outpost for the knight. For now he avoids it. For example, if white captures on a8, queen a8 might be a bit annoying because of the pressure on g2. So for now he avoids the exchange. He plays rook f2 first, and now a big threat was just to take on a8 and play queen h7. For example, if you play some empty move like, I don't know, let's say this, takes, and queen h7. Now the target is the h4 knight, and if you go to g6, knight f5 is very powerful, and queen g7 is coming next. So black cannot defend properly here. Here black chose to capture on e4 instead, queen e4 and knight g6. And for this, at this moment, the knight on g6 looks very stable, nothing can trouble him. But now, boom, h4, going for h5 to destabilize the knight from g6. Rook e6 was played, and now h5. So now after knight e7, the f6 pawn, at least f6 pawn is not hanging, but queen h7. New problems appear for black. King has to go back to somehow defend from the h-pawn getting promoted. Knight e4, and now f5 was played by black, because f6 pawn was under attack. Something like knight c8 wasn't so promising because of queen g7 and pushing the pawn forwards. He tried with f5, but let me tell you, this is already lost for black. He went for this, king d7, because if he goes to f6, bishop e5 is lethal, and there's nothing that black can do here. He went for king d7. Now white doesn't even want to capture the rook. He takes first on f7. He thinks that pawns are much more valuable in this position, which is the truth. He goes to h6, trying to stop the h-pawn, but now he takes on f5. He collects all the pawns of black. Now black manages to even exchange queens, but black lost so many pawns that it doesn't matter if they get into an endgame, because those pawns on g and h are just going to roll over black. He took on e5 now, and after rook g8, bishop g7 was played, and black resigned here because he's going to lose his rook on h6. If he moves it from h6, let's say to d6, now white has knight e4, and how does black respond? If he goes to e6 now, then knight f6, and black is losing an exchange. And also you have to have in mind that h-pawn is going to run very soon. This is not gonna work for black also. If he goes to d3, then h6 is very strong, and the h-pawn is going to promote very soon, so there's no hope for black in this position. He chose to resign here. Thank you so much for watching, and have a nice day. Bye!